it's fake. They just don't want people to come up here because of you get a clearer perspective, you know?
Yes, that makes a ton of sense. So, let's just get started. My guest is currently in outer space. If you're watching on Zoom, um, I recently discovered them, which is cool because the other podcast you sent me, they discovered you through your music, also. So it's cool when you're able to make a fan instantaneously to the point that they want to like have you on whatever platform that they have. And I recently discovered you on YouTube watching The Death of Curious George by I'm the worst with names. I think his name is Joel Haver or Joel Haver.
Yeah.
And Joel Haver is a YouTuber, and he released an animated short of The Death of Curious George, and at the end there was a single of Jack Johnson's Upside Down, but it was a cover, and it was a very sad cover. And Jack Johnson's a very happy guy if you listen to Banana Pancakes or any of those songs. So to hear this very sad rendition of Upside Down, it really hit me where I live, and the artist behind that was Kevin Sloan, and he is also in two bands, the Humble Cheaters and Trikes, as well as
Mhm.
having the solo project. I'm guessing your solo project, Kevin Sloan. So yeah, you're basically like three bands. So that's pretty great.
Yeah. Part of me thinks maybe, before coming on the podcast, I should have just had one thing,
I'm dead.
just
That's what happened. So that's what my previous guest Seth just said. I had listened to I had known about him for a few years, and then had did this deep dive before having him on my show. And he went from saying he did all this, and then recently had him on. He's like, actually, I just want to be called a music producer and an artist or something, versus being like, I fix bikes or do this or da da da. So I feel that, but no, being part of three bands is pretty cool, and I feel like you're able to um, use different muscles that you wouldn't use on a solo project or in a different band or whatever.
yeah. And I mean, it all yeah, like it all feeds into each other,
Mm-hmm.
And, so there's no problem with it, and yeah, and it's just funny. Like I have two things coming out for both projects, and most of the time there's just like very little happening, but now there's a few things happening.
Hell yeah. So with that, do you have like different like marketing employees for each one, or like do you just push them all the same way, or?
Um, well, so this is like the first time. Like usually it's just well, okay. I've been in many different bands at many different times over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Like prior to this thing called it was the COVID-19 pandemic
What's
that
that?
happened. Yeah. I was in like a million bands, and I was living in New York, and I was just gigging a lot. And then after that, I'd focus a lot more on like soundtrack stuff
Mm-hmm.
and working with Joel and like other video type stuff and mixing, recording. But anyway, the Humble Cheaters is like the first band I was ever in, and I've known them since I was very young. And so that's like the oldest and the longest going project.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the solo stuff is just just personally what I love doing and what I've always done. And the Trikes thing is new, and it's because I recently moved to Cleveland, and it's with people here. So we're playing soon. We'll be playing locally here. And anyway, yeah.
Wait, so
But yeah,
first of all, it was.
I've lost the audience with all these things. I feel like the NAST people, the messaging, I got to get it straight.
I want to know though, like you purposely moved to Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, city that never sleeps. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. It's everything they say. It's true. No, so I went to college in at Oberlin, which is in Ohio,
Okay.
and the person who I'm dating grew up there, and so that's sort of what landed me here. And it's a lot cheaper than New York, and I know
For
some people
sure.
out here, and it's kind of in some ways like a lot of the work I've been doing with music has been remote, and so it's kind of made some, and I wanted a reason to get out of New York, so here I am.
Were you born and raised in New York, or like how long were you spent time in there?
I was born and raised in Long Island suburbs,
Okay.
New York City, and just like Billy Joel,
Yeah.
and Lou Reed, and I think Lou Reed,
I don't know for sure about Lou Reed. Maybe.
maybe. Let's
Maybe,
pretend.
maybe Lou Reed.
Yeah, I just wanted someone cool to be from there,
You
and
said Long Island, right? So like you got Pete Davidson, right? Or is that
oh, he's Staten
Staten
Island,
Island? My bad.
different island, but similar idea, but slightly different idea. But grew up there, then went to college in Ohio, then did a brief stint in California, then went back there. Now I'm back in Ohio.
Nice. And like California, like LA for music, or just
Uh, North of LA. So I was
okay.
living in Ventura, and I was working for a music nonprofit organization, the Ohio Music Festival. And I was like writing songs all the time and doing some shows, but it was mostly working for that organization. And I don't know, it was just a cool opportunity. Um, but yeah,
No,
eventually went back to New York.
I kind of feel like, are you saying like, even if it's like, because I'm kind of realizing this, and I don't think I'll ever really backtrack or go back on what I've said initially, but like, I do feel like when I do, because I've been trying to find other jobs in media that help pay the podcast bills and all that, right? And it's pretty successful so far with like how I'm able to make all that work. But I've also realized if it's not something that's directly my own stuff, you do kind of have to realize even if it's freelance or whatever, you are working for someone else. So it's less about like your creativity and more of what they want. Is that what you're kind of saying was happening with the nonprofit, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was in a way, it was the kind of thing where I was working like in an administrative role with all these like really awesome jazz and classical musicians,
Mm-hmm.
and, like meeting them and meeting their families and stuff, and like um just sort of realized like which side of the divide I wanted to be on, kind of
Right.
thing. Kind of just showed me that preferred their kind of life to what I was doing. But um yeah,
No,
I don't
that
know if that
makes
answers
sense
the
for
question.
sure. It's almost it's as simple almost as like, do you want to be on stage or in the crowd? It's as simple as that. Kinda.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, a lot of people do both.
Yeah.
It's not like one or the other, but or do you want to be behind the stage is the other thing, or in the
Hmm.
ticket booth, or yeah, whatever, wherever you are located. But
Yeah, for sure. So that's interesting that like it seems like one of your goals was to leave New York, but like that's the same for me when living in Seattle. It's like, why would you want to be from the place you grow up in? But like I went to New York, damn, it's been a year now, and that was like the most inspiring place I've ever been. But then if you're like growing up or even an hour or two outside of New York or whatever, it's still
yeah,
like less inspiring versus if you're visiting. But I also visited Cleveland for comedy, and I don't think I was a fan.
you're inspired by the two buildings and the.
Yeah, I do not. That's like the smallest city. Like I,
No, it's not as inspiring as New York. And I mean, look,
not
it's
trying to
not
shit
like,
on your place though. I'm not shitting on your.
I mean, next time you come, there's cool places I could show you more. Where'd you go? Did you go to like
Yeah,
Hilarities?
hilarities.
There's like that's like sort of, it's really weird
Mm,
over there in particular because it's like the shell of what used to be much more functional city. And
Mm.
now kind of like the cool places where a lot of the culture and art is happening or is sort of like on the outskirts of that downtown area, with the exception of basically Hilarities. That club is really cool.
Which is like a
And there,
street long, and that's it.
so there's like other neighborhoods and places that one should visit, I think, when they go to Cleveland. But
Yeah.
um yeah, it's not like the best. It yeah, it's I'm not gonna like defend it, you know. I just live here, you know, for like yeah, anyway, but and I grew up in the suburbs of New York, so like New York was the place for me.
Mhm.
You know, it I wasn't like jaded about it. Like it was not the feeling of like I gotta get the fuck out. Like it was like I gotta go there, you
Mhm.
know. But I think after maybe 3 years of living there, that I did become just disillusioned, and I felt like it was more important for me to like just focus on art and a few things, which is still, I guess, too many things, but you know, with the three bands. But I don't know. I'm not. I don't want to defend choices as though I made a smart decision here.
Okay, I feel. So then, how'd you get you got your start with music in New York? Then was it because of like in a inspiring music scene or art scene that you saw in New York, or?
Yeah, I mean, I started with music like when I was like 5 years old, you know,
Mm.
just playing piano and stuff. Um, and I think a lot of my life has just been like reacting to and finding ways to do that in whatever wherever I found myself. But I intentionally like moved to New York from California to try to focus on music and gigging and playing in
Mm.
bands. Like I've always played a lot of instruments and I knew musicians who were there. So um yeah.
Wait, so you started in New York, but then you moved to California for music, and then you moved back to New York for music.
Okay, so I grew up in New York
Correct.
as a child
Okay.
and started writing songs and making up, you know, just doing music with my life.
Mm.
So, and then I went to college in Ohio
For
at a very
music or?
and I did not go for music because
Okay.
it didn't seem like a smart thing to do with like you know out of fear. And but I played in bands and I took music courses, and in a way like I'm not the kind of musician who is like who can focus on one particular skill set. So it wouldn't have really made sense for me to like major in a particular instrument.
Mm.
But anyway, so I went to college for English literature and some economics, which for no other reason than because it seemed useful. And then I went to California, and then I did some gigging, did some music, um, worked for that organization, and then I went to New York to like really focus on the music thing, and that's what I've continued to do.
Nice. And then when did like not Joel, when did Kevin Sloan become like the like a project?
Um, 2019, I put out my first album
Mm.
called The First Thing. And by that point, I'd played on different people's albums and I played in a few bands, but that was the first thing. A lot of those songs I had been working on for a few years and like writing when I was living in California.
Mm-hmm.
And I was friends with Joel Haver when I was releasing that, and he helped me make a promo video for that first one.
Oh,
And
dope. Was it animated?
no, it was just we did it like it was like six of me, sort of like art because I recorded all the parts and did everything.
Oh, got it.
So it was like six of me all like arguing about how to make the album.
Yeah.
And That was the video. Yeah.
Dang.
And so I was like collaborating with him a lot too when I was doing that. And like I was in a bunch of his videos as well in the early days of that channel. Um and yeah.
How'd you meet him?
He was a friend of a friend of a friend who I
Oh,
played in a band with.
nice.
And he was like before his channel blew up and everything, he was just this guy who took his camera everywhere and made weird YouTube videos. And I thought it was awesome and started hanging out with him. And yeah, that's how we became friends.
Nice. And like you've just like stayed in contact? Because I'm guessing you guys don't live in the same state
No,
now.
no, he's in LA and I'm in Ohio. We're just like remote friends, like now, internet friends at
Yeah.
this point.
But I
But
guess that's
everyone
what
was internet friends during COVID, right? So
yeah, I guess COVID, yeah, that's what COVID kind of helped with, I guess. Or I don't know if helped or um made more normalized because there was already always people who had internet friends, but those guys were weird until COVID, you know.
yeah.
So how'd that song come to be, the Curious George song?
Um, he asked me to do it for a video,
Yeah.
and I thought it was funny. I thought it was gonna be a funny video,
Hmm.
and I did the song kind of like in what I thought was like an American Idol like style.
Hmm.
Like I tried to really make it dramatic, but I did feel like emotional while like I was like trying to like do it straight, you know?
Hmm.
But I thought the result would be like comedic, but it turned out to be like pretty sad, you know? And
It did.
so and like and then like, you know, a lot of people were like fucking post the fucking song, man. All these like DM, you know, and I posted it and then people are like fucking put it on your Spotify. And like I want to give the people what they want, but like I don't know, man. I got to think it through. I don't want to just like react to like this is the first time people have like wanted anything from me, and like
Damn.
I don't want to. Yeah, it feels weird, but
Yeah, it's great because like it already has like I was listening to it today and it has like 42,000 views on YouTube now and it's been like less than a week or something, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, and you know, like like if I really like wanted to, you know, get really good stats on everything. I'd put it on the streaming services and like stats are good. It helped like when you have good stats and you try to book a gig and they're like, "Oh, look at his stats," you
Hmm.
know? But I I don't know. I that's not like a reason that I'm gonna do anything, but it's cool. It's gratifying that people like it and that it that it had that response, you know? Like I really didn't expect that. So
Yeah. My friend was trying to tell me yesterday that like they're wondering if whether it's venues or just like labels or A&Rs or anyone music industry related are going to start caring less about numbers due to the fact that people can buy followers, that meta verified thing came out. You can, buy streams and all that. What do you think about that?
yeah, I mean, I think so. And I think it's just a bad idea to let yourself be guided just by the numbers because, like, I've known bands to book full tours and to do lots of things with, like, you know, very minuscule stats. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just, it's as cliche as it is, like, the focus should just be on the music that you're trying to make, obviously. So, but I mean, it's cool to see like it's cool to the extent that it actually tells you useful information, I think.
Right. It's
Like
it's interesting though because like in Seattle at least, like there's cover bands that make way more money and gig way more than the the Seattle band or artist, you know. So, and it's not like those cover bands have millions of followers by any means.
That's yeah. I mean, that's also just a thing with cover bands. I think it's like the reliability that like everyone
Mm,
knows what they're gonna get, and there's no risk associated with it basically. And if they're have a reputation in the local scene, it's I think that has to do with that too.
right, that's a good point. But back on this Curious George thing, do you know? I'm still kind of confused on. He died because he dug too deep into QAnon, or that was just like one part of the bigger.
Oh no, so he died just from natural causes,
Oh,
I think. I mean, my guess is as good as yours. I just did the music for it. I'm not I'm just, I just work here. I didn't write it. No, but it's I think my interpretation is that he like in a moment of clarity when he's dying sort of like realizes that uh, he's been using his curiosity to sort of like cover over realizing the love that is already here all the time kind of thing
right,
was my
right. I get that. I definitely felt a little bit of that as like an interviewer. I'm like, damn, Curious George is telling me not to ask questions, and that's my.
I mean,
And just think about love.
yeah, I mean, you don't it's you can just look at it as like a dumb cartoon too.
I'm getting
No,
all my life advice from Joel Haver's Curious George.
but I think if there is like a lesson to take from it, it's not to not be curious. I think it's just to, first of all, realize when you've lost the plot, which I
Mm,
think is also like sort of what's going on there too, and to maybe let your curiosity be guided by like genuine love and compassion. And maybe that's a way to like not feel like you're not allowed to be curious.
right, that makes sense for sure. So when you first heard the song in the video in that way, did you laugh because you were surprised, or did you feel sad when you saw it in the video, or how did that make you feel when you first watched it?
Uh, well, so I sort of knew what it would be. Like I didn't see it because I composed it like to the live action version of the video because it's rotoscoped, you know?
Oh, got it.
So, but like I didn't know how it would all land and feel like in the final edit. But yeah, I definitely didn't think it was funny. Like I didn't laugh when the song came on. I thought it was moving, you know? I
Yeah,
think I had the similar experience that what those 40,000 uh people had out
yeah.
there in the YouTube. But I don't know.
It's funny because when it first came out, you hadn't dropped the song yet, so I the song was stuck in my head, so I had to find the chopped and slowed version on YouTube, and that's what I was listening to until you dropped the actual version.
Wait, what is that? The chopped and slowed version?
You
Like
know,
somebody like artificially slowed down Jack Johnson's version
yeah. So they slowed it down and added reverb to it.
to
Yeah,
be like my version or just like separately?
the regular version, like
I know,
Jack
but like,
Johnson's version.
right. But was it done like recently or was it just existed on
It
YouTube?
just existed already.
Huh.
You know that like chopped and screwed genre, right?
No, I don't.
What?
I should get into it.
You don't know about chopped and screwed? That's like a huge genre of like
It's like something you're making up.
it's like that thing where like it's usually like purple like it's a like they remix singles or albums and the cover is usually purple to like represent like lean or whatever and it's like slowed down versions of songs and then like it's chopped up sometimes and added reverb to it. It's like a whole genre of like hip hop music, but they don't do it with just hip hop. But it's called like slowed and chopped and sometimes
Is it
reverb.
kind of like that Jay-Z Or is it? Oh well,
It's like, imagine. Do you know that song "Still Tippin'" by Mike Jones?
no.
Still tipping on fofo. It's like that. That's like a early 2000 songs.
Yeah,
So it's like that slowed. So you know the song that there's like a violin playing.
yeah.
So it's like that song kinda in that style, but for like any song that an art like a chopped and screwed artist wants to make.
Do you know? Have you ever heard of the Ocarina of Rhyme?
No.
Do you know about the Ocarina of Time?
What is an ocarina? It sounds like Macarena.
An ocarina is like an ancient uh, instrument that you blow into. It's like it looks like shells. But there was a Zelda video game on Nintendo 64 called the Ocarina of Time, and it might be similar to Chopped and Screwed, but I don't know. So wait, Chopped and
Yeah,
what?
chopped and screwed.
Might be similar to that, but they sampled the music from this video game, and
Mhm.
the music's amazing in this game, and they like mix it with rap music, and it's really cool. But I don't know if it's like if it's the same concept.
Maybe. I feel like that's surprising that you don't know it. Okay, I feel like if you checked out at least once, like have you seen Moonlight?
No, actually,
Fuck, that would have been the perfect
is it in
example.
that movie?
So in Moonlight, do you know the song "Classic Man" by Jadena and Kendrick Lamar?
How's it go?
I'm a classic man. I'm the worst singer. You can be me if you look this clean. I'm a classic man.
I don't know that song.
Do 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 do. What? It was like a number one song in 2015. Okay, but anyways, Moonlight, the movie. I think it's an A24 movie. I think
Yeah,
everyone
I know
knows what Moonlight is.
Moonlight. Yeah,
Um, in one of the scenes, this guy's like driving in a lowrider, and he's playing the Classic Man song, but it's chopped and screwed, so it's like all slowed down and stuff. But that would have been a good example if you had seen that movie.
yeah.
But
Well, it's been on my to watch list since it came out. You know, it's very acclaimed, and
yeah, it's all right. I feel like yeah, it's interesting though because like it's like a deep movie, right? But like I feel like, in my opinion, no pun intended, the climax is when and it's not even it's kind of a weird scene, but like it turns out like both the character fuck that might be a spoiler. Basically, someone gets like jerked off on a beach in the sand, and it's like the way they shoot it is like it's kind of it's just a beautiful shot, so it kind of it's fucking weird, right? So like anytime I think of Moonlight, I think of this guy getting jerked off on a beach, so it doesn't make me want to go see the movie again because I'm like,
gotcha. Wait, so it's a spoiler that he gets jerked off? Like you just spoiled the movie for me that this guy gets jerked off, and now I shouldn't see it.
that actually is a spoiler, which is I don't know how that's a spoiler, but it is. Yeah, it is actually a spoiler. But you could still see it because you don't know who I'm talking about gets jerked off. But that is wild. Now that I think about it, that's actually it. That is
Well,
yeah, that is like the climax of the
that's
movie.
a year when like there was a lot of like uncomfortable, and maybe this is a comfortable one, but there were a lot of uncomfortable hand job scenes in like really serious like movies, like the Master with Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman. There's
Oh,
there's a really uncomfortable hand job scene in that one.
how do I not remember that? I've seen that movie. I feel like
He's the leader, you know, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
mm,
And there's just a scene where he's standing in front of the mirror and his wife, I think it's like Amy Adams or something, and she's just jerking him off. And it takes like a little bit too long. And they're just both looking straight. And I can't watch that movie again for the same, like, it's just, I'm just going to be waiting for that
yes,
jerk.
yes, exactly. That's exactly how I feel with Moonlight. I'd be waiting for that scene. Yeah, it's just. Anyways, that happened in that show. Congratulations on the YouTube video though. Like honestly, like that's. Do you think that it put back on Curious George? We pivot here. Like, do you think that opened you up to like a new crowd? But you said you've also worked with Joel before, so does that crowd already kind of know you?
I don't know. I think that it definitely got a lot of people to check out my music,
That's
which
cool.
is really cool. And it does feel new, and I don't want to sound like ungrateful when if I'm like a little bit confused about like how like what to do with the like whether to release it on Spotify, because I mean it's just a nice thing, for that people liked it, and I like the in terms of stats, whether they matter or not, I can clearly notice that like there's an uptick of listeners on all the streaming platforms that like is probably directly connected to this. So,
That's awesome.
and
The next thing you got to do now is like make a video with Jack Johnson himself or something.
yeah, maybe I should. I checked out his most recent album,
Dude, his
and
new album, so the remix album,
oh, it's a remix album.
that's a remix, the dub, whatever it's called.
Oh, I haven't heard the dub one, but I just heard
Wait, what's it
the
called?
album. But it's like it was produced by Blake Mills, who's
Blake.
really cool, and it just sounds really good. And I was like, oh, he like it just was better than Pancakes to me. No, no,
Wait,
there's anything wrong
so,
with Banana
oh,
Pancakes.
the Meet the Moonlight?
I think so.
I don't think I've 2022. I don't think I've actually listened to this.
I was surprised because I was, I'm associated with Jack Johnson now,
Yeah,
and I want to see
and
what
it's
he's up to.
good.
It's good. Yeah, I liked it.
Wow, you should check out his. He just dropped a new album. When was this? June 2nd. So last week. Last week, he dropped a new album called In Between Dub, and it's basically just a remix of all his like most popular songs.
Oh,
But he has one of my favorite DJs on there, called Nightmares on Wax, and they remix Better Together and Breakdown, and it's really good. But
cool.
so like for you, are you actually before I get into that? So you said you've been getting into like cinematic music. Is that what you were saying earlier?
Well, like in terms of what I've been creating cinematic
Yeah,
music, I've done like soundtracks like similar to this video, but also just sound for like different things connected to Joel as well, and not um but just sort of like the background music on videos and stuff like that.
and how do like what mindset do you have to be in to make like a background or like a cinematic music versus making music for a band, or is it the same kind of mind?
uh it's different, and I think it reminds me of what you were saying about like working for someone else versus working for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
um there's actually something kind of comforting when somebody like wants something specific, and they can give like you do something, and then they can give like specific feedback of what they really want. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's obviously the main difference, but I've surprisingly found that like kind of comforting, and it's expanded my ear a little bit, because like other people have different like just have a different vision than I would have.
For sure. And like, what are
Whereas
your
playing with a band, you're sort of you have what you want to hear, and there's negotiation with the other people, but it's a little it's a little different, obviously.
and are you the front man in both bands or no?
No, they're all both of them are pretty democratic in the sense of front people. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Humble Cheaters, I'm one of two singers slash songwriters, and Trikes, it's like the three of us. It's like you could think of it as like a super group, but instead of it's not that super. It's three people, and all three of us write songs and sing.
No, that's
Is like
awesome.
yeah.
I think there's no. I think that's a super group for sure. I just went to a show on Monday where it was like three or four different members from different bands in one band, and it was super cool. So like, yeah, you don't have to have like a crazy following or whatever to be called a super group. It's still tons of super cool different minds coming together to be in one group. Who is like, because my favorite song is it off that new album? Yeah, May 30th he released it. I like Left Handed. That's like my
Yeah,
favorite song,
yeah,
and that's obviously like a girl in that. So like how many? So there's 3 members you said.
three. Yeah,
Cool, and because you're definitely not the singer for that one. I don't
no,
think.
I like yell in the background of that one, but yeah,
And then
not.
how did that group come to be
Uh, it's just two people I'm really close with here
in
in
Cleveland?
Ohio who I have, hang out with and play music with anyway, that we just sort of decided to record 3 songs and hopefully do more and hopefully start playing some shows. It's kind of just like a very like organic and not super premeditated um formation,
Mm-hmm.
But I think I hope, it's very new and we don't really know what it is, but I have high hopes for what it could become.
Hell yeah! Wait, so it's called Trikes because there's 3 members and you just released 3 songs, or
Yeah,
no?
and it's called Tree, the EP, like one, two, tree, you know?
Okay, that's pretty. And who came up with the title? Like, who came up with the band? Is that also?
Just
Uh
kind of a mutual.
I
What
see.
do you mean?
So like Trike. I just realized that 1 2 3. That's great. The album title. That's amazing. Um, it was just like you guys just all came up with it at the same time for like Trikes, or like was there like a special story behind it for the name?
I don't know, we just started like jamming and like it initially started because I booked a gig and it was going to be Kevin Sloan
Mm-hmm.
and the two of them were going to play with me and we learned a bunch of songs and then like 2 nights before the show it got canceled,
Oh
which
no.
as happens. And then we sort of had and that sucked and that kind of like knocked the wind out of it a little bit. But then we started playing just the songs of of each other's songs and just realized that like we should just be a band and it could be more equal. And that's how it happened. And yeah, I don't know like exactly how trikes happen. I'm sure we were just like drinking beer and thought it would be funny,
Yeah,
Um
that's pretty organic though. That's cool. So, and there is like an actual art scene, music scene in Cleveland, Ohio.
small, but yeah,
That's cool.
there's people, there's bands, there's a few venues that every night, pretty cool bands, and so there's stuff happening.
Nice. So isn't
Any, but honestly, anywhere you go, I think you'll find you might have to look harder in certain places, but I think anywhere you go, you'll find people doing music. You'll find a scene.
unless you're in like Appalachia or something, or
Oh, you'll find. I mean, you'll find people there. They'll be on porches. You know what I mean? You like
that's fair.
be on the drinking moonshine and the freaks and weirdos who like want to leave there. Yeah, like I don't know. And I really think anywhere you go,
That's a good
there's
point.
someone.
Yeah,
You know,
music makes the world go round, I guess. Heck yeah. And then, so how old were you when you created like the Humble Cheaters? Like, do you guys have like a lot of albums out, or is this gonna be like one of your first albums together?
yeah. I mean, we got together when we were like 19 or so.
Nice.
So, and we used to all live in the New York area, but we've since spread out.
Mm,
Um, so I don't even know how many albums we have now. Probably 4, 5.
nice.
This new one just feels really different and just a lot better. Like the stuff we were making when we were 19. Like it's just you learn things as you get older.
For sure.
But
Heck
I'm
yeah.
I'm really excited about the new album and we're planning a tour in the fall. So
What? Come to Seattle.
I'd love to, but it seems like it makes the most sense for us to go no further west than Minneapolis, but I'd love to keep going, but
For sure.
just we'll see.
Maybe one of these YouTube songs will blow up, and then
Yeah.
you can rent like a Curious George
Research.
something. Yeah. Wait, so are you gonna be like, when you tour, do you drive places or do you fly places, or how do you usually get around?
Well, this will be the first time because I mean we've done like short. Most of the Humble Cheaters audience is in New York because
Mhm.
that's where we work. But we've done like short stints on the East Coast and stuff. But this will be our first like, and it's only going to be a week. You know, it's not that crazy, but it'll be our first time doing just that many, and
Mhm.
you know, it'll be New York to Minneapolis and anywhere in between.
That's awesome. And then
And
what would you say your goals are overall as an artist? Like, do you want to be like one of the top bands in the world? Or do you enjoy just the fact that you are able to make music, or
like as an individual or as a ambassador.
individual as Kevin Sloan?
Um, yeah, I think I just want to make like put good music into the world in whatever shape that takes, and if some, you know, if a cool opportunity comes and a lot of people like something, that's great, but I think it's kind of about, at this point, it's just about making good music with people that I like.
Hmm. And
But
has it always been that way, or has like your mindset on music grown or evolved as well? Is because you said your sound has evolved, so has the mindset changed also?
yeah, absolutely. Like I think I just don't have a strong sense of that I have control over like the trajectory of my career,
Mm.
as you could call it, and also of like the sound. So it's just sort of about accepting the opportunities that come, and I don't know,
I think
like
that's almost
yeah,
like the artist mindset almost, though. Like I feel like I sometimes walk in between like wanting to be very business savvy and also like make silly videos, but then I also
yeah,
realize a lot of my friends that solely just want to be artists, they're like, what do you mean you have to do this, or why,
right.
like, what is the trajectory? So
Yeah, and I mean I don't want to go that far where you're like just being kind of stupid about
right,
it.
right.
I'm not calling your friends stupid or anything, but I think that there's a way in which what I'm saying about just recognizing that like you actually don't have a lot of control over what happens can include like making intelligent choices
Hmm.
about what to focus on and what can support you in what you're doing, while also like not being artificial about it, I guess. But I mean, yeah, and I mean if you look at like any artist like ever
Hmm.
who like you can look back and they had a real career and they did it, you know, like David Bowie, who like they did like a million other things too, and if
For
you
sure.
just pick them at one point in time, like it's not a straight line, you know. But I do think that there's probably, like, if I was smarter, I would like come into this podcast with like a clearer story to tell about myself. But this is, you know, the first, like basically the first interview. But
Yeah, for sure. Like you're part of the community now, and like I don't, no one's life's that linear, anyways. Realistically.
yeah,
Also, I feel from listening to your music, I feel like you're really into like psychedelic music. Am I right with that or no?
yeah, I would say that.
You know who I've really been I don't know why I've only just recently checked out their album, but I really like the that Plastic Ono's album, Plastic Uno's album. The John Le- John Lennon and his wife. Have you checked that album out before?
I think is like kind of like a more experimental thing that
Yeah,
he did with Yoko Ono.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's cool because like I've been sometimes when I'm driving, I don't always like I take time to like listen to my guests' interviews and music, but sometimes if you're just zoning in on someone's music, you kind of need like a refresher or whatever. So like I unintentionally was having like a John Lennon song, and then a song by you would come on, and then like another song would come on, and it was I was like, all this stuff really does sound psychedelic together, and all works well. So I was wondering if you intentionally like try to put an emphasis on psychedelic music at all, or if it just kind of happens.
I think it just kind of happens. I mean, I think it's just I I like to try to be a little experimental
Mm.
when I'm recording, particularly when I'm recording alone, just because like to keep it interesting. And I think that just doing weird shit where like you don't know, like you don't even know what you're doing,
Yeah,
how it sounds is kind of will have that like psychedelic effect, you know?
yeah, yeah. And then you play. So do you play a lot of instruments also?
Yeah, play piano and guitar and bass and like think random things with strings
Heck
that are
yeah.
kind of ours.
And that just happens from like being in bands, or like have you had like an interest in instruments besides that?
I think it comes from growing up. Uh like I started out as a piano player.
Hmm.
That gives you like an intuition, I think, about music and sound and like because you're kind of learning um you're playing multiple parts with just your two hands and
Yeah.
I just think when I was growing up it was sort of like learning instruments and like instead of sports or like puzzles or homework or things that like other kids like could help them have something to focus on and like process stuff that was it for me. So it's kind of like in hindsight I think it's mostly just like a curiosity out of a certain kind of necessity.
Nice. And wait, that was like, do you have like a musical family or
No,
wow?
I was like it was kind of weird. Yeah, I just it was just me. I mean, my older brother got into drums and he played drums when he was in high school and he played some like acoustic guitar and he played in a couple bands. So he was definitely like an influence on me
Hmm.
getting into rock music and or like getting into playing guitar and bass and being interested in bands. But I think I was just always really curious about music, like from a very, very young age.
Heck yeah, yeah. It shows you definitely like being in three bands is definitely not easy, and like they all have different sounds, and your albums change. So it's cool that you. It seems like you definitely are like a music lover. So that's cool.
Yeah. And I think um it's it's more recently been like really great to share it with other people and like take the skills that I've accumulated as a arranger and songwriter and like mixing and like helping friends who are like writing songs anyway, like to bring it into reality is like a really cool thing to share with other people.
Hell yeah. So with that, man, what is some advice that you have for up and coming artists, creators, influencers, people that may want to move to Cleveland, Ohio?
I would say, you know, you just gotta follow whatever's necessary in your own individual life and circumstances. And for some people, that'll mean, you know, getting as many followers and getting your stats up as high as possible. And for other people, that'll mean just keeping it as a passion. And I just think you just got to look at your own life and don't look at me or anyone else.
Mm.
That's my advice.
There we go. Also, I want to take this from one of the podcasts that I produce. What is the worst music advice that you've ever been given?
That I've been given personally.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a lot of bad advice. Um, I think like chase your dreams is like pretty bad advice. um, I think so. Maybe I'll go with that. Don't chase your dreams. It's not gonna come true.
What about goals? Goals can come true. Because I guess goals and dreams are different.
No, yeah, and I'm kind of being facetious,
Yeah, yeah.
but I think I'm sure I've gotten worse advice. I mean, there's worse advice than that. I'm a dreamer. You could dream all the way to space. How do you think I got up here?
That's amazing.
I'd have to think more about bad advice, but the world. I mean, on a certain level, I think all advice is bad. Like all the advice and wisdom of the world ever just cancels each other out. And I think people just need to stop following advice.
Yes, stop following advice and listen to Kevin Sloan's music.
Yeah,
That
those are
is
the
that is the only real advice anyone should ever take.
ones.
With that, what is the easiest way for people to reach you and check out your bands?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Kevin Samuel Sloan, and just gonna keep the messaging straightforward. Excuse me. Trikes. Check out Trikes. Trikes the band. Tree by Trikes. That's what you should check out.
Hell yeah. And with that, I guess this is the third time I said and with that. Basically, I'm ending this by saying this is the NAST podcast with
Trikes.
and
Kevin,
with
Kevin Sloan.